this grandparent club is fun to be in.
Yeah.
And I tell everybody, when appropriate, get in as quick as you can. 'Cause
Absolutely.
It's a blast. 70s guitar riff. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Triangle BNI, our weekly show where we bring you small business success stories in the Triangle. If you're not familiar with BNI, Business Networking International, it is the world's largest networking organization. Our little slice of heaven here in the Triangle, if you're not familiar with Central North Carolina, it's Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill. And each week we bring you a story of somebody that's used BNI to grow their business. And our guest this week is Amy Gretenstein, a realtor broker with the Boone team at Real Estate by Design. Amy, glad to have you here today.
Thanks. Good morning.
Brave the cold weather.
It's a little chilly
Sun not
outside.
feeling too good,
No,
but
I
hey, you're a
snuggled.
trooper, right?
Well, he's the one not feeling well, so glad he's home with Dad.
So you tell Dad, hey, this one's on you. I'll be
Oh,
back
yeah.
in about 2 hours, right?
They're rocking some Mickey Mouse Club right now. I think they're doing okay.
Does Dad have the hat?
No, not yet. But that's a
Okay.
good idea.
Yeah. Early birthday present, right?
Yeah. Sounds like a good idea.
Amy is part of RDO 6 Profits in the Park. They meet Tuesday mornings at 9 a.m. at Hope Community Church in Morrisville. You've been with the group since 2016, and you started that group, correct?
I did,
So
along with a fellow member who helped kickstart the whole journey.
So how did that come about? And that's because it's not easy to start a new chapter.
It is not for the faint of heart. Now that I've done it, I definitely feel like the lack of knowledge of what it took to start a group gave me the bravado to do it.
Yes.
But I always say it's my first kid. I have a 2-year-old, but I have a 3-year-old BNI. So I had been in BNI previously with another role in another career. And when I changed career paths into real estate, that is one of 2 or 3 foundational members that are always full in all chapters. So when it was time to go out on my own, I knew I needed to start my own chapter. That was the only way I was going to cultivate a group that truly was going to help me grow my business. I was in a new career. I needed new faces, new names, new everything to kind of grow things. So I pushed forward with a new chapter instead of trying to find a chapter that would take me and make me work. Yeah.
So this is middle of January. How was 2018 business-wise for the Boone team?
It was definitely our best year yet. It was my 3rd full year in real estate, my husband's 5th full year in real estate. We both were in corporate sales previously. So transitioning over one at a time, I came over, it took him a step back. Now we were both full-fledged into real estate. We also had a toddler 2 years ago. So that took us a step back.
Changes the dynamic.
Yeah. A little maternity leave and stuff like that. So once we were both just fully engaged last year, our business grew tremendously. We were just shy of our financial goal, but we hit our unit goal head on. So, just shy. And it was a lofty goal. So I am really excited about that. So I'm hoping that this year we're keeping the same goals and just seeing if we can blow it out again.
All right. And we're going to get to the husband-wife dynamics of working together in just a minute. But if you are not familiar with BNI or Triangle BNI, you can go to trianglebni.com and search at the very top right-hand corner. It says search for a chapter. And there's chapters that meet every day in the morning or at lunchtime. And we just recommend that you just come out and visit one day, see what you think of it. If you are someone you know is looking to start a business or grow a business, it's a wonderful thing because you have like-minded small business people in there with you as well. It is seat specific. So as Amy was talking about, once you come in as a realtor, you're the only realtor in that group. You build the relationships with everybody in your chapter. They get to like, know, and trust you. And you start getting the residential real estate referrals, and you almost hit a lofty goal, which 2019, I'm sure you guys will hit that again. Yeah. And in each chapter meeting, there is a feature speaker, either 5 minutes or 10 minutes, depending on the size of your chapter. And each speaker is introduced by the member bio sheet. So we're going to do it this way because we do it every week this way.
I like it.
Amy Gretenstein, realtor broker with the Boone team at Real Estate by Design. The location of the business is?
The Triangle. We have a brick and mortar at South Point, but we mostly work out of our home office, which is based in the Briar Creek area.
Okay. Now here's my second favorite question. I've got your post-college work history.
Oh, yeah.
So previous types of jobs, I want to hear some high school, pre-college stuff that just was most memorable or couldn't believe I took that job.
Yeah. So in college, I majored in broadcasting and I did a lot of day work for production companies that would come into town.
Mhm.
So they'd come
And we're
in.
going to get into that,
Yeah,
but
so
go
they'd
ahead.
come
Yep.
into town and I'd work for them for the day or two. And one of the most bizarre jobs I got, you also get to know all the other day persons who work for these production companies that come to town. And so they'll call you and say, hey, I've been picked up by this production. Do you want a job? They paid pretty well. It was a good industry. And I got picked up to work on a rap video featuring Lil Wayne in a very particularly harsh neighborhood in North Miami. And I was definitely one of the few females on the production staff and one of the few um, culturally diverse people on the staff as well. And yeah, I was definitely fish out of water, and it was a really interesting experience. And it was just completely submerged into a different world that I wasn't a part of ever. And I remember going home that night and going, oh my gosh, what have I done? I cannot tell my parents I did this.
How many days was the shoot?
It was just a one-day shoot, but it was like
Okay.
an 18-hour day.
Oh,
Yeah, it was a
okay.
music video. They shoot them all in one day, keep the costs down.
Yeah.
And the artists were severely late. And it got out that they were in town. It got announced on the radio station. We had a crowd control problem. So it was very feisty and probably a little more dangerous than I would want it to have been.
And
But
what did you think of the finished product once you saw the video?
oh, the video is fine. I mean, it was what we were shooting for and what we were
Yeah.
going for. It was just the experience itself was just completely, yeah. There was gunfire at the end of the night.
Oh.
The production manager put me in my car and made me leave. Yeah, I left and my phone was dead. This is back before we had like the cool portable
Naturally, yeah.
chargers. I had like a brick Nokia phone. And I got in the car. I shook all the way back to my apartment. I walked in. I was like, oh my God, what have I done with myself? This is insane. It was just one of those jobs where I look back and I was just brave enough to do it. Now
Yeah.
I'd ask too many questions. I'd never get hired.
Yeah. Any other music videos after that one?
Not music videos. I
Okay.
did some commercials,
Yeah.
some other production
Okay.
stuff.
And
here
we'll
there.
get into that. I got some notes on that.
That
But
was just one of those
that's funny.
memorable ones.
Lil Wayne.
Lil Wayne.
Yeah. Still on your playlist on Spotify?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Always.
The next section on the bio sheet is personal information with family.
Yeah.
Well, let's tell us about your husband and your son.
Yeah. So I've got a wonderful husband, Jeff Boone, who's 50-50 watching right now. Hey, Jeff. We've been married a little over 4 years now. We've been together almost 9 years now.
Okay.
We met playing kickball.
Right. And so I always ask people, A, how did you meet? And do you both tell the story the same way?
Yeah. Pretty much the same way. We met playing kickball.
Was this with Cindy?
Yeah, Cindy.
I know her.
Cindy played
Yep.
on the same league.
She was one of my bowlers when I ran the AMF site in Durham.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we played in the Raleigh area, and she
Mhm.
was mostly Durham, Chapel Hill, but
Mhm.
we definitely know Cindy. And so we met on the field briefly, but we really met at the after event at the bar. It was fall, and we both were no longer wearing our kickball t-shirts, but wearing our collegiate sweatshirts.
Okay.
And I went to the University of Miami, and he is a Virginia Tech Hokie.
Oh, okay.
And he saw me across the bar. I don't even know if he knew I was female or attractive or anything, but saw me across the bar, and him and his best friend rolled right up to me and started trash talking football immediately. No hi, no what's your name.
Wait, what do they have to talk about?
This was a few years ago in which, we had both left the Big East, joined the ACC, and Miami had kind of started going downhill. We'd been nationally ranked. Virginia
Yeah.
Tech had been passed over a few times, and they had just stomped us and humiliated us, nationally ranked in Blacksburg, like 5 or 6 weeks previously.
Okay.
And so they took this as an opportunity to just nail me on it. And I, being a Miami fan, was pretty used to it, rolled right with it, got right back in their face. And,
Love at first sight.
oh,
right? Yeah.
definitely. The best friend was like, oh, yeah, this is happening. This is it. We didn't see it quite that way, but we stayed friends. A few weeks later, we ended up, he had extra tickets to the NC State at Virginia Tech game in
Oh.
Blacksburg. He had like 6 or 7 extra tickets
Mhm.
and offered it to a bunch of kickball players. So we were doing a whole friend road trip to Blacksburg. And I
Nice.
was like, I've got to see this,
Yeah.
venue. Never been to that part of Virginia. I've never been to Virginia Tech. Let's go do it. And the morning of was after a big kickball party, and everybody was too hungover to show up. I was the only one who showed up the next morning. I literally was standing there with my overnight bag, like, so no one else is coming?
So you two went?
Mm-hmm.
Very nice.
I know.
I've heard it's a cool place to watch a game.
It was amazing. So I'm road tripping with a guy. I know his first name. I know him from the bar. I text his license plate number to my parents and tell them like what I'm doing. Okay, I'm crossing state lines with a stranger to go to a football game. This was supposed to be a group event. I talked to the other people. I knew they existed.
Yeah.
They just all bailed. So when we showed up, that original best friend was there with his wife and some family.
Okay. All right.
But our first time ever hanging out as a date, it wasn't supposed to be a date, but it ended up being a 24-hour date. Was a 3-hour car ride each way, meeting both sides of his family. Grandfather, grandmother, all his cousins, mom, dad, step-parents, all his siblings. His ex-wife's parents showed up to the tailgate. I was the first woman he brought home after being divorced.
Yeah.
I mean, it had been a while, but, he brought me home. Oh, gosh, it was just one of those moments we laugh about all the time because it was so awkward, but we were already in the middle of what we were going to do. I was like, we'll just roll with it. I mean, it is what it is.
So did you cheer for State?
Yeah, very loudly.
Okay.
And being a Miami girl displaced into Blacksburg, Virginia at the end of November, I brought a sweatshirt. So I was the single coldest human being in this mountain town.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you wear Miami
Oh,
colors?
absolutely.
Good.
Absolutely.
Okay.
My team was playing, just not there.
Yeah.
So I had to represent.
So were Virginia Tech or Miami mentioned in the wedding vows at any point in time?
Not in the vows, but we did have a lot of, I wanted a fall wedding. We met in the fall. Fall's our jam. I wanted a fall wedding, but ACC is so generous in not releasing the schedules until at the time it was mid-February. They just released them this week, like a few days ago in mid-January. Yeah. But to plan a fall wedding, you have to book your venue well in a year in advance. Mm-hmm. So we looked at 10 years of history of football games and we picked a weekend.
Nice.
And we ended up not only both having a Thursday night game instead of a Saturday game, but it was Thursday night against each other.
Oh, perfect.
So our wedding weekend started with Virginia Tech Miami in Blacksburg. So all of the family went there. We got married in Asheville. So they all then came down to Asheville Friday. And we bet whoever won the game on that Thursday night, the music in which we were leaving the reception was going to be either Phil Collins, In the Air Tonight, which the drum solo is a big Orange Bowl favorite. It's a big Miami Hurricane jam.
And Mike Tyson, yes.
Yeah. Or it was going to be Metallica, Inner Sandman.
Which is what,
And so I won. Okay. So we left our reception to Phil Collins' drum solo, and it meant a lot to me and my Miami fans.
Yes,
the rest of the family just crumbled.
Yeah. So now that you know their family, you see them all the time. Who honestly knew at that point on that day that she's the one for him, or it's going to work out?
His mom. His mom harassed us for 6 months after that visit. When was I coming back? When could we hang out again? And we kept trying to tell everybody we weren't dating because we really weren't dating. Yeah. We got back from that trip and actually went out on a few dates, and it was lovely and wonderful. But I had just gotten out of a relationship. He was recently divorced. Now that we had traveled together, it was hard to just date. We were so much more.
Oh yeah.
So much closer at that point.
Yep.
So we backed it up a little bit and just remained friends for another 6-7 months.
Okay.
Before everyone's like, you guys are dating, right? I'm like, yes. Yes, we are.
Love that.
It's a good story. It's very funny.
Yeah, it's just a million questions on that, but we'll move on.
That's okay.
We talk about animals. You have pets with some very, very interesting names.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my parents had adopted this lab mutt from the shelter. He is adorable. He is a lemon-colored lab with freckles, and he's quite a doofus. But they named him Max. But because he is such a doofus, he gets scolded and reprimanded a lot. So we came up with a more robust name for him. So when you're scolding him, you're not just saying Max, Max, Max. He is now Maxwell Stewart. There was a moment where I couldn't remember his name. He was my parents' dog. I couldn't remember his name. And I kept calling him Stewart instead of Max. And so finally he just became Maxwell Stewart. So that's his name. And when we adopted a kitten a few years after that, he was a skinny little slender little black kitten with huge ears. They were like satellite dishes on him. And being all black, he was just perfect to be Spock. And I'm a huge Star Trek fan. And so we named him Leonard Nimoy.
Nice.
So we've got Leonard Nimoy and Maxwell Stewart at home running the roost.
And they answer to both those names,
Yes,
right?
they do very much.
Is it full names for both of them?
Absolutely. Both of them will go
Yeah.
as soon as you say both names. It's like, oh,
Nice.
I've done something I wasn't supposed to do.
Leonard Nimoy.
Yeah.
Well, like that again, this is the beauty of this show. Love the stories.
Yeah.
Hobbies and activities of interest.
Well, I love to play kickball. Still play. 9 years in. I've taken a couple seasons off here and there. We have a toddler. He's 2, so I definitely had to slow my play, though I definitely played 5.5 months pregnant and actually played in the championship game that summer. And we scored the leading home run, which was very exciting. Everyone's yelling at me not to fall while running and whatever. But we had a great time.
So great athletes, you and Serena. Both played pregnant and won.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Exactly. And then immediately I was forced to retire until I had the kid. And so I play kickball and then also do a lot of charitable work. Part of leaving my more 9-to-5 structured corporate job was I wanted to get involved with the community and be more involved and do some things that I felt were just really rewarding. And so I've gotten involved in a handful of charities. I'm involved with Blondes versus Brunettes, which is a subsidiary of Alzheimer's Association. They are a more geared to young adult organization that is athletic based. It is a flag football game featuring all women. They spend about 6 months fundraising through various events, bars, sporting events, cocktail parties, etc. And then they play a huge flag football game every summer. And they are a tremendous powerhouse in linking my generation and younger generations with those facing Alzheimer's and the caregivers who live that life.
Good.
Also involved with a local charity that's relatively new, which is Tee Up for BCAN. BCAN is Bladder Cancer Advocacy Network. The guy who started my chapter with me, Stephen Dunn, his wife, Mary, is a oncology nurse, and she has a huge passion for what she does. She is nationally recognized for her nursing, and she's just really a powerhouse. She just dedicates her whole soul to what she does. And so Stephen, being a huge golf fan, wanted to start a charitable golf tournament and knew immediately that he would benefit her passion. And so when we started this chapter, we started Tee Up for BCAN. It'll be in its 5th year this year. We're very excited.
Very nice.
But BCAN is a national organization. They're small little chapters, typically 10 to 20 people in the community who fundraise about $1,000 a year. Our chapter fundraises about $14,000 a year.
Oh, wow.
And they are always looking at Stephen and Mary for how we're able to do that. And it's through this really incredible golf event that we host each year.
And Stephen's friend of the show. He was guest number 3, I believe. We talked about that. And also Matt Yablonowski was on the show, and he talked about that as well. So
it's been the
love
three
the
of
BNI
us.
connections.
Well, it's been the 3 of us putting this on for the last few years.
Okay.
And Matt is Stephen's right-hand man when it comes to that organization. He just makes it happen.
But these are the type of people you find in BNI. Not only are they devoted to their craft and growing their business, but also involved in the community. So we love hearing those stories. Your burning desire is to?
I would like to travel some more. There's a lot of Europe and Asia that I would really like to experience.
You have Greece, Fiji, and Australia.
Yep.
So which is first and when?
Probably Greece.
Okay.
As soon as humanly possible.
Right.
I said it would be for our 5th anniversary, which is this year, but I don't know if that's going to happen. I'm not going cheap to Greece.
No.
I'm just not.
Yeah.
I'm not Yeah, it's gonna go big or go home.
Yeah, okay.
So,
I like it.
we'll see how well 2019 serves us, and maybe I can squeeze it in before the
Okay.
end of the year.
Good.
Yeah.
The key to your success.
Just networking. I honestly connecting people with their needs and resources. I have found that no matter what career I've been in, because I've been in two while in BNI, that being a resource for those around you makes you indispensable and invaluable to your relations, whether they're business partners or potential clients, friends, family. I transitioned my mom to North Carolina with the help of BNI people,
Yep.
both out of state and in state. I've made referrals to folks outside of North Carolina through the BNI network. Um, and just being able to be references for folks wherever because you have these relationships.
That's one of the things we try to explain to people on another reason to join BNI. Not only are you going, if you do it well, you're going to get business,
Mhm.
but you're the hero to all
Mhm.
your clients because I call you, go, Amy, I need a carpet cleaner. Do you know one? Got one. I
Yep.
need a fill in the blank. I got one. So you become the hero for your clients, which is nice.
And there's
That strengthens that relationship with them.
absolutely, and there's a pre-qualifier. BNI is not exactly easy to get into.
No.
Just because you clean carpets doesn't mean you can join a BNI group. That BNI group has its own pre-qualifiers of what it's looking for, both professionally and personally, character, integrity. And so nothing like calling another BNI group and know that they've scrubbed this person already for me. I know they're an upstanding person. They wouldn't be in BNI if they weren't.
Yep. All right, so we have a few new people watching today, haven't
Oh,
probably met you yet. I know you
oh.
get out a lot, but probably a few new people. My favorite question here is something no one knows about you.
No one knows about me.
Yes.
That's a
Or
good
maybe the people today
good
don't know
question.
about you that we may not talk about today.
Yeah, yeah. So I sell real estate now. I've been in sales for the last 8 or 9 years now. But in a previous career, I desperately wanted to be a television producer. And that was my, teenage dream to work for MTV in Times Square. And I made that happen. I worked for BNI. I'm sorry, listen to me. Worked for MTV down in Miami throughout college on some small stuff, day to day or small projects. And then when I graduated, I got an opportunity to move to New York and work for them. I worked at two different offices there, but I did finally get to 1515 Broadway, which is the
All
creme de la creme of MTV studios. And my little cubicle, which was a quarter fraction of the size of the room I'm sitting in now, um, was diagonally across the hall from Kurt Loder's office, which just is the
Great
coolest,
voice.
right? He
Great
never came to the office, but he's still at
underrated
it.
set of pipes
Gosh,
since the day I first heard him on MTV.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, but
Great.
a super, super intelligent, smart guy. There's a lot that goes on at MTV and there's a lot of talent, but that guy is
Mm.
just a different level of talent there. So he did come into the office occasionally, but for the most part, he just had his cool corner office there. And I got to see it every day while I worked there.
If they would just play videos again,
I
right?
know, right?
I
Well, he'd
know.
probably come back.
It's too funny that they don't, but yeah. Okay, so another wonderful question I like asking people so they understand how you got here is literally the first time you ever heard BNI.
Mhm. So before I was a real estate agent, I worked for a payroll and HR outsourcing company. And I was initially hired through a staffing company to answer the phones. I'm don't want to toot my own horn, but I'm a little overqualified for it. So about 4 months in, they recognized that and asked if I wanted to take a customer service role in which I would be helping our clients actually process their payrolls. I was basically data entry while they trained me and gave me a little accounting background and stuff. And so I did that for a little while, and they kept training me more and more on different things that they did um, until I serviced the sales staff and my role was to um, onboard all new HR clients to our company. And so I was the liaison between the sales and our
Nice.
company. And and so they would always talk about BNI, BNI, BNI. They would talk about the creative things that they would do with their BNI folks, happy hours, bowling, social events, visitors days, um, just different things. And if we needed anything, we would call them and say, "Hey, I need a plumber." "Oh yeah, I've got one in my BNI." And so I applied to transition into that sales role uh, 18 months in, and the first thing I said in the interview was that I would join a BNI. And
Okay.
I think I had the job for 4 days before I went to my first BNI meeting. And
Which chapter was that?
it was RTP Professionals.
Okay.
I think it's RD16. They meet over,
Yes. They've moved to,
mhm, it's Wesley College
yeah,
off of Miami Boulevard.
we had Sean on here, and
Yep.
I've yeah.
Yep. So I was in that group for 4.5 years,
Mhm.
something of that nature. Yeah, it was
And
amazing.
Marcella's been on, Sean's been on. I'm sure I'm missing a couple of names from
Paul
that
J.
chapter.
Stinson is
Soon,
okay. Well,
soon, yeah. Yeah, the realtor, yeah.
he's the realtor, and
Yep.
hence why I'm a realtor.
Yeah.
Thanks, Paul. And my mentor, him and Peyton have a tremendous business,
Yep.
and they have been wonderful friends. And yeah, I walked in that room, and Paul put his arm around me and was like, "Welcome to BNI." And man, it was a great fit. They're a great chapter, and they've done
Yes,
a lot of
they're
good.
growing too. I mean,
Well, when
they're
I joined them, they had 55 members. It was
okay.
huge. I was so intimidated. It was overwhelming.
So when you left, so what
Mm.
expectations did you knew a little bit about BNI? What expectations did you have going to that first meeting?
So I thought you showed up, you did your 30-second, 60-second commercial, and then people would listen to you and flock to you and give you business. And I spent about 9 months in doing my one-to-ones. And, Stephen Dunn was also in that group at that
Mhm.
time. Went out for lunch here or there. We, did LinkedIn connections, stuff like that. But I didn't really understand how to extract referrals from my people in the
Mhm.
group. And so I sat down with someone who was a business coach and in the group and a longtime BNI person. And I said, I'm just not getting anything. Like nobody's, sending me referrals. And so he kind of helped me uncover ways to, I call it extracting. Sit down and just talk like we're talking and keep talking until somebody says something that triggers you to say, I want to meet them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Talk about your last 5 clients, talk about your last 5 proposals, talk about what you did last weekend. You just never know, getting a tooth extracted from the dentist. The dentist was a
Yes.
great referral for me.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
boom, let's talk about your dentist. Can I meet them?
Yeah.
Do you like them? Stuff like that.
But it's funny on those one-to-ones what connects people like Virginia Tech and
Yeah.
Miami.
Yeah.
Immediate you find there could be any number of kids, "Oh, I used to live in that," all that stuff, but until you start asking those questions, you're right, you don't know, but once you have that instant connection
Yep.
on something,
Yep.
things kinda take off.
And that's basically how I've been successful since. I immediately switched my frame of mind of, I'm not getting anything to let me sit down and see what people have to give and I can help them give it to me. I have found success all over the place that way. I do the same thing in real estate now. I sell something much easier. My previous products were much more complicated, robust, technical, much harder to just drop in a conversation. Real estate's like, do you have a place to live?
Mhm.
Do you want one?
Yeah.
Um, and so it's a little easier, but still people forget to think about it. And so now I sit down and talk to them about my trigger words. You know, I'm having another baby, I'm getting married, I'm separating, I'm moving, I've got a promotion. Trigger words that initiate real estate conversations. So I sit down and train my sales force,
Mhm.
which is all the folks in BNI. I sit down and train them to better understand what I'm looking for through these trigger words so that when they're out and about, they think of me more often. And the more often you're in front of these folks, they'll think of you more often. It's amazing.
And that's the key, though, when you first join is understanding that it's our job to educate our members because they are your new sales team.
Mhm.
And if they don't know what you do, and also as important, what you don't do, like some people, it's whether it's geographical
Yep.
or whatever it is, just so they know. I'm not going to send them to Amy because she doesn't do that for
Yeah.
whatever reason. But once we educate them, then kind of light bulbs start going on everywhere.
Exactly. Exactly. So you'd be surprised where in a one-to-one where I could, or one-to-one-to-one-to-one, maybe it's a group lunch,
Exactly. Yeah.
where I sit down and we just have casual conversation about what's going on in people's lives. And all of a sudden there's great opportunity in their friends and family or their neighbors, et cetera, who, oh, my neighbor's selling their house themselves. It's a for sale by owner. Like, oh, that's great. Well, if they start complaining about that, let me know.
Yeah.
I personally don't go calling on for sale by owners. They get plenty of those. I don't need to be that person. But if someone casually says, man, it's the pit selling this house,
Yeah.
Great. That's a great opportunity to introduce me.
And what I've learned from realtors in BNI, and they're kind of mixed on, some of them say, just send me the name and number, I'll call them. And others
Mhm.
are, we'll see how the
Yeah.
process goes. But they generally leave 10 to 15% on the table because they don't know what they're doing.
Oh, easy.
Yeah.
Through negotiations or pricing or how long they leave the home on the market, all sorts of things. There are opportunities to sell your house yourself, absolutely. But if it goes wrong, it can go wrong real badly and
Mhm.
cost you way more than you would ever pay in commissions. I mean, there's a reason I'm so bound by regulations and continuing educations and licensing, errors and emissions insurance. That is not cheap. And that's because we get sued all the time. You don't want to be off the other end of a lawsuit. People are trigger happy in this world. And if they feel that they have been duped or, misled in any way, they'll seek out retribution and they're right to do so because sometimes they're owed it. But having someone professional protect you
Yeah.
is why we earn the money we earn. And that's why people see this large sum amount. Oh, you earn so much commission. Then I have to pay
Well,
for all that.
yeah.
I have to pay for that licensing and continuing education and the insurance and all the liability and all of those good things. And then payroll and all that good
Yeah.
stuff to make all that happen.
And in the market these days, then you can explain to them, that's why I got you 10,000 over your asking price too. So,
Absolutely. And just, some people think it's putting it on the internet, I do so much more than that. Yeah, maybe 20 years ago, getting it in the MLS was pretty much all you needed to sell the home, because the internet and Access Zillow and Realtor and all those cool little websites and apps didn't exist. Now that we have those, the accessibility is there, but there's so much more going on in that transaction between contract negotiations, repair negotiations, overseeing things, and just investigating a property. You'd be surprised, especially on a buyer side. You don't wanna go in without knowing what you need to know
Yeah.
about buying land and what the land is. The house is one thing. Everyone always worries about plumbing and electrical. But what about the land you're buying?
Yeah.
Is it encumbered by easements or utility or drainage, flood zones? Does it have access? Does somebody actually own legal right of way to your property that you don't know about? That's where your real estate agent really comes in to protect you on these things.
And with technology today, would you a lot of people now will go scout out
Mhm.
on their own kind of if they
Yeah.
decide an area and stuff like that. So do you care if the prospective buyer comes to you with, "Hey, here are the 4 houses we wanna look at," or
Oh,
tell me
yeah.
what I need to know. This is
Yeah.
what we like, but I have no idea where to look
Yeah.
or what to look.
So, I mean, 9 times out of 10, I will get a message from someone saying, "Hey, I was playing around on XYZ app, and what do you think of this house? Is this a good deal?" Something's triggered them to look
Yeah.
at it. Sometimes there's an open house, they'll go check it out, things of that nature. And that's usually the first time I talk to them. A property has triggered them into having a real estate conversation. And so then they'll be like, "Oh, well, then there's 10 more properties I've saved. Tell me about them." And that's when my knowledge can come in and I can say, "Well, the reason this one's been sitting on the market is it's a flood zone. It's, in, state flood zone pools, insurance is gonna be very expensive. Or this has a septic tank. Not everybody wants a septic tank.
Yeah.
It's more antiquated technology and city folk not really into it. It might actually be a manufactured home, but nobody knew that because of the way it was
Yeah.
listed. Different things. There's nothing wrong with a manufactured home,
No.
but different financing required.
Yeah.
So it's just totally different process.
Yeah.
Yeah. So people come to us with those, and so I love it. It gives me an idea of what they're looking for, and sometimes I read between the lines there. I can see a pattern in what they're looking for, and I can make suggestions. I can't tell you how many times a client comes to us with very specific, "I want this, 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 and this," and I end up selling them a completely different home, not because I'm upselling or something, because that's not really what they wanted. I was able to hear what they truly needed
Yeah.
and get them that.
So we're talking about talking earlier
Excuse me.
with back in the chapter, that you're educating your fellow chapter members on how you do what you do, how you do it, what might separate you from that. It's difficult in all the chapters I visit. It's difficult for the realtor to stand up and say, because you don't know John and Sally moving from Madison, Wisconsin, so you can't ask for him. some industries are easy to ask, I need this company, I need this person. So what can you ask for on what you're looking for, the trigger words that you were mentioning?
Yeah, so I focus on people in transition, whether they've graduated college, that's a transition. They got a new job, transition, got a promotion, especially a significant one. Um, Maybe their job duties changed and they need to be closer to the office. Family growing, family downsizing, kids going off to college. You no longer need a 4,000 square foot house if it's just the two of you at home.
Yes.
Um, and so people wanting to take their equity out of their home and utilize it to do travel or pay for college or pay for people getting married, or they just really want a smaller house to grow old in. Um, and just different variations of transition. Divorce, marriage, we talked about babies, the surprise twins. There's nothing like we have an 1,100 square foot 3-bedroom house.
Yeah.
We've been trying to have a baby for a year or two. Boom, we're pregnant. Oh no, it's twins.
Yeah.
1,100
Hello.
square feet is going to
Yeah.
be real tight all of a sudden. And so that's,
Yeah.
expedites your moving. You think, "All right, the baby will be good. We'll wait till the baby's a year, 2
Yeah.
years, then we'll get a bigger home." But when you got two of them all of a sudden.
Oh, yeah, game changes, yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
With the first one, see, you and your husband have it pretty good right now
Yeah.
because you're playing zone defense. When
Definitely.
the second one comes, it begins man to man.
Yes. Well,
And then if and when the third one comes, all bets are off because you don't have enough you can't guard everybody.
well, and in the nature of our business, we're both in real estate. So we both work nights and weekends all the
Mhm.
time. And so my mom actually lives with us now. We finished out the attic space. She has a 700 square foot in-law suite up there. She loves it, man. And so she's right upstairs. So there are times where, it'll be like, "Hey, mom,
Yeah.
I got to go show a house.
I'm sure
Can you
she
watch?"
just
Oh, yeah.
hates spending
I
time with her
know.
grandson.
Oh gosh,
Yeah,
she
just
she
yeah.
loves it so much,
Oh,
but it's
yeah.
great for both of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, that man-on-man coverage is
Yeah.
what we're
Oh,
running
yeah.
these days
Yeah.
because
But your
uh,
son, though, will have those stories with his
absolutely,
grandmother forever
forever,
and ever and ever,
forever.
and you get when you get older, what I found for people when they're describing their grandparents, it's rarely a present. It was the time, the experience. I used to
Mhm.
do this with my we've had
Yep.
people on the show. I worked in my grandparents' store,
Mhm.
and
Oh,
you
I
hear
love
those
that.
great yeah, exactly. So your son is that's great to have.
Absolutely.
Do you remember your first sale?
My first real estate transaction?
Mhm.
Yes, I do. It
And was it what you thought it would be, and was it by the book?
It was probably the coolest learning experience of all time. I was in our brick and mortar office, working, and it's not a retail presence, it's a office condo, which is fine, but we didn't do a lot of retail type like a lot of agencies have set up. We're more remote based, but I was in there working on something and two people walk in the office and they're asking about a property, which is just super rare, very old school. This is like
Yeah.
1995 style of real estate, but they had a sheet printed off from Zillow. And so they're asking about it. And I'm like, okay, well, let me see what I can do, help you out here. And basically, what had happened is they had found a property on Zillow that they liked that was listed by another agent in my office. And when you reach out on Zillow or Realtor, any of those things, and say, I'd like more information, that you don't actually reach out to the listing agent. You reach out to the real estate agent who has purchased the right to receive that lead.
Oh,
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
know that.
It's a whole wicked world out there.
Oh, so
And
you
so
can buy somebody else's
3
listings?
to 5 agents received that lead, and now it's a urgent, time thing to then be the first person to contact the
Yeah.
person who reaches out and offer to show them the house. So, this person had reached out. I don't remember this woman's name, but they had offered to reach out to show them the house, and they showed up, and she never showed. But she didn't give a phone number. So the agent who had purchased this lead, won the right to show the house, didn't give a phone number, just communicated via email, and then no showed the clients. So they saw our real estate agency was the
Mhm.
listing agent and realized we were around the corner. So they just drove over thinking we were all affiliated, and we were not. And so I was like, well, let me see what I can do. And so I called the sellers and they were able to get us in right away to see the house. And the clients were from Holland. And so they had transitioned here to work for the US base of their financial institution that they were working with. And so they wanted to make an offer on the house, but all the money was in Europe. And so now I had to learn about international funds. They were trying to pay cash, international funds, and getting money into the US. And there's a lot of regulations on cash moving into the US without going through the proper resources, and just got to make sure it's
Yeah.
all legit.
Mhm.
And yeah, so I learned a tremendous amount about that transaction.
From the time they walked into the closing,
Yeah.
how long was the time?
So because of the delay of funds, getting the funds to America, their own financial institution who held the funds had daily limits of how much they could transfer. And it's an international bank which has brick and mortar here in the United States, but the nearest one was in Virginia. So they had to be in person to move the funds.
Oh,
So it's like,
no.
yeah, oh yeah, it was just one thing after another after another. And then moving the funds, there are transaction fees. And when you change currency, there's loss of transaction there. And my client did not want to lose funds. And
Mhm.
so he wanted to make a good business decision in how he transferred the funds, what bank and what institution was going to handle it for him. So we ended up walking away from that house, not moving forward with it. And it took about 6 more months before we were ready to make that transaction happen. So it didn't end up being my first closing, but they were my first clients. And
Very
they're just
cool.
like the coolest, like walked right in and was like,
Wow.
oh, okay, let's figure this out. Like, what's
And you're
going
thinking
on?
like, "This job's so easy. I just sit here
I
and
didn't
give
think it was
more."
easy. I didn't think it was easy at all. They made it very, they'd ask me these questions, and even a pretty established real estate agent probably
Yeah.
doesn't know a lot of the answers to
No,
those.
not the international
And
stuff, yeah.
so I was like, all right, well, let's
Yeah.
go figure that out. But I was so well connected in BNI. I was calling all sorts of bankers I had met in my previous role in finance. I knew a lot of different types of banks and started conversations everywhere of who can get money here, and do we just want to do a traditional mortgage and then you can pay off the mortgage early.
No.
You could do something like an arm, a
Mhm.
3-year arm or something crazy with a low interest rate that allows you then to just take a few minutes to figure out how to get
Okay.
the money over here in a financial way you want to. But then he didn't have any United States based credit. When he ran his credit, he didn't have credit. And so traditional mortgages, federally backed mortgages require credit. They can do non-traditional mortgages. There are private mortgage companies out there that hold these types of mortgages. They are federally regulated, but not of the same exact measure. They can do those types of loans, but they typically want to see either small business funds, cash flow, bank statements, or this cash that's sitting out in
Mhm.
the ether. And they're like, well, we'll do it, but you got to get the cash in America. And so
Yeah.
it was just a vicious circle, but we explored all sorts of fun things. So I learned a lot
And
with
now
that
you
trip.
know for the next
Oh, yeah.
international client, you're done. We'll have
Right?
this by Wednesday,
Right.
yeah.
I already know what proof of funds letters need to look like, especially if currency's in a different language. Well, not
Yeah.
just a different language, but
Literally and figuratively, right? Yeah.
some of the funds for this client were held in Hong Kong. So literally we had some European funds, and then we also had Hong Kong fund. I don't even know what the Hong Kong fund is,
Yeah.
but the financial statements were in Chinese. So we had to get them in English and then convert the dollar amounts. And so yeah, it was just tons of fun.
All right,
Yeah.
so we're learning what a rock star you are
Oh,
in the
thanks.
States in real estate.
Yeah.
Amy is a first to the show here. We like first with her own IMDb page.
Yeah.
So if you don't know what IMDb is, it's the Internet Movie Database. So if you've, like my wife and I, if you've ever been watching a movie, like we know that person. We get on, type in IMDb and the movie, it shows the person's name. Oh, that's where we know them from. So very few people have their own IMDb page. Okay. So there are a couple things with Amy. One of the, again, going back to the stories. So MTV, you talked about,
Mhm.
worldwide brand.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know who Harpo Productions is,
Oh,
and that is Oprah's production company.
it is.
Okay, which you've worked for them. And a lot of people have seen Morgan Creek Productions,
Mhm.
but they may not know the name. If you're not familiar with Morgan Creek Productions, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves,
Yeah.
wonderful movie. Last of the Mohicans, I think has a couple of Oscars
Filmed
there.
Filmed here in North Carolina.
Oh, really?
Back when I was a child. I was
Okay.
not part of that. So
And then probably one that the younger generation might know, Ace Ventura.
Yes,
So
yes.
just a plethora of movies that they do. So you've worked for all three companies in different roles.
Yep.
everywhere from a talent producer, a casting producer, a film runner, and a production assistant.
Oh, yeah.
And this all started through college with
Yeah.
when the MTV with the Lil Wayne video, but in that time span?
All in that time span. I got involved tremendously in college in sports production. So I would be a runner for game day during the day. I'd show up on Friday, help the crew get set up, cables run, craft services set up, get the talent driven to and from wherever they needed to be driven to. And then during the actual production, whatever, all hands on deck, there'd be anywhere from 3 to 10 of us. And I worked sidelines or in the production truck, logging film live. So logging the major plays so that at the end of the game, an editor could use my time clock and do a really quick highlights reel because, SportsCenter comes on 38 seconds after the game. So they need all of the major plays. And so having that time code there, that was my job. Working in the booth with the talent, just being an assistant up there, whatever they needed.
So reality TV,
Mm-hmm.
some interesting shows that they have.
It's so interesting.
One of your under filmography here, you worked for Engaged and Underage.
Yeah, that's an MTV.
Please tell us.
Oh, yeah. MTV had this show. I guess
2009 it was. It's listed as.
Yeah, so it was season 3. So mid 2000s, the show geared towards young women, engaged and underage. The concept of the show was not actually to have underage children being married, but it was supposed to be engaged and under 21. Now, to be fair, a man named it. We all thought it was a silly name.
Yeah.
A man named it. You can tell. No offense to men, but someone's so disconnected from a teenage girl's aptitude. Because again, it sounds salacious when it's not.
But it's catchy.
It is catchy.
Right, yeah.
It is catchy. But it wasn't underage. We did have, I think, one 17-year-old on the show who got married, obviously with parents' permission. But the premise of the show was to follow a couple around their planning and getting married at such a young age, 21 and younger, 18, 19, 20-year-olds, starting life and what it's like. A lot of times you're so young at this point, your family's still incredibly involved in your life decisions, as well as your finances. And so just basically it was a, soap opera reality show of watching how you blend two families with such young ages involved and just the, volatility of getting married in the first place. But,
And probably like a successful sitcom, the outtakes were probably better than what showed up on there.
Well, the sad part, so my job for them was to find these young couples getting married and interview them and kind of come up with the story. Reality is all about the story. What's your niche? Oh, they're 17 and 19. He's in the military. She wants to get married because he's shipping out, etc. Or, she survived cancer. And so she's not, she's not really 20. She's really 40 because she has gone through so much life in her young age. And she's ready to get married because life is too short. And she doesn't want to, whatever the story is, craft it all, get all of the, parties involved, get them all interviewed and kind of come up with the story. And then I would pitch it to the producers. So the true gems didn't make it to air because they were either just too off the wall or so off the wall we could never film them or, whatever was involved. So they just didn't make it to air.
And one of the little notes at the very bottom was, if you have a quick story on this, the 1994 presidential debate.
1994, 2004.
2004. Okay. All right. Okay. Which debate?
I would have been 10.
That's true. Yeah, that's bad math.
Yeah. So at the University of Miami, hosted the third presidential debate of the 2004 season, which was super neat. They turned our on-campus basketball arena into a huge security perimeter.
Mm-hmm.
The Wellness Center shares a parking lot with this venue. They turned the Wellness Center, which is a huge wellness center, into a media desk. Like all the equipment was removed, desks were put in.
Which party debate?
Both. It was the presidential debate. It was.
Sorry, I'm thinking. Okay, my bad.
It was Bush and Kerry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so it was really neat. They obviously shut down our campus pretty significantly, but this fraction of our campus literally had 10-foot fences put up around it.
Mm-hmm.
We had security at the baseball field that you had to go through like TSA style. And then they would put you on a bus because you're now secure and bring you into the compound, which is funny because that's the parking lot for the gym. And they had media trailers. And like I said, the whole wellness center had been converted into a media compound. And so I was hired to work with NBC. And at the time, they were only allowing 100 students to go in and watch. It's very hard to crowd control these things. So they had like I don't know, 200 people that they were allowing in from the community. And then they were allowing 100 students, need to write an essay and all this stuff. And we have 15,000 students. So I was not picked to go in. But we got everything done. And then we were able to use our media passes to go in and ended up being able to
Very
sit and
nice.
watch. It was really neat. But I got to work with Tom Brokaw. It was assigned personally to him. Kind of neat.
Mm.
And so my job for the 3 or 4 days he was in town was anytime he was at the media compound, I was at the media compound and whatever they needed. Whether it was, hey, make sure he has lunch, make sure he remembers to eat. Make sure he remembers his time because he's fervently working on the stories and everything that he's putting together. And it was just really neat to watch the actual big guns do the reporting. I'd mostly only ever gotten to see on-site sports reporting, which is just as neat, much more feature-based, much more personal stories. This was hard news. And so I got to really see this on-site hard news and then get to sit in front of these incredibly intelligent, powerful men debate each other in that room. It was really neat.
Very nice.
And I passed Secret Service. So I still have my Secret Service badge.
Nice.
The questionnaire for that was much more intense than what you're asking today.
Yes, I figured as much.
It took 6 weeks to get that.
And with more repercussions too.
I'm sure it was.
So one of the things you have listed on your bio, and you and I, our age range is just a little different, a little bit older than you.
Oh.
So you said you were a softie for oldies music. I just have to ask, what do you consider oldies?
Oh, like actual oldies pop music, like early 60s.
Okay, all right. Because I was laughing
like,
about that. I thought it could have been 2001. Lil Wayne, I didn't know.
Yeah. I like pop music, period. So Lil Wayne's out of my
yes.
typical comfort zone.
So you like
I love a good boy band. And let's just go back to the original kind of boy band sounds and pop music there. My mom's a huge fan.
Okay.
And so like Love Potion Number 9 was like my favorite song for like 10 years growing up.
It's funny the way we influence our kids on what they can listen to, but if your mom liked music, you probably listen to a bunch of
my dad liked classic rock, and it took me probably 15 years to truly understand how oldies and classic rock kind of overlapped each other, but were so different in genres. And so I couldn't figure out why neither of them liked each other's music, really. But I didn't like my dad's music for a long time. I like it much more now. My tastes are a little more robust. But when you're 9, 10 years old, pop music is just my jam. It still is my jam. So,
all right. So, being a real estate expert now, when was the aha moment that's, you know what, I think I can do this. I can make a living.
Still waiting on that. No, I'm just kidding. Knowing I'm going to make a living of this still every day, I still consider us a new small business. Both Jeff and I are in this business for 100% commission. We do not have any backup salary. So I'm still waiting for that relax, oh yeah, we've made it kind of feeling. But I definitely have juggled multiple closings in the same day, in the same week, done multiple offers in the same week. And those are the moments where you realize, like, hey, I'm doing this. I'm really doing this. I'm not just kind of dabbling in it. I'm actually making this happen. And then when you get to the point in a multiple offer situation, because there are some great homes out there, but due to location and the immense population growth we've had, there are still some homes out there that more than one person wants to buy. And you get your heart set on it. You've envisioned your children growing up there. You're going to have a dog. You're going to let it run in the backyard. You can't wait for that Super Bowl party you're going to host. And then you have to tell them that they didn't get the house. Yeah. That's heart-wrenching. So like really knowing you've made it is being able to say, no, I got you that house.
Very good.
Oh yeah. It's really, really neat.
So if you and Jeff, when you buy your next house, will one of you be the agent of record for the buyer?
Absolutely not. We will not sell our own home and we will not buy our own home. We will need someone to be in between us. Know too much. Real estate agents are the worst to work with. They know too much. They have too much emotion to it.
Okay.
And so having part of the reason I'm good at my job is I'm I'm able to step in between the
Mhm.
emotion between.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Right. All right. So you said 2018, you set some lofty goals,
Mhm.
just about made it. So how much have you tweaked up the goals for 2019? And you confident that you'll A, reach your number, and B, get degrees?
Yes, I'm confident we're gonna hit our numbers this year. You know, we set a lofty goal last year, but getting as close as we did, kind of thought we would swing and miss, and that would just be our goal for a few years. And I'm like, I'm gonna join the Hall of Fame, right? I'm gonna just keep going until I get there. Well, we kind of almost got there, so now I've got to figure out
Yeah.
whether we did not get in the Hall of Fame.
Okay.
But we set a really, really great goal, and we were so close that I'm gonna keep it there this year and just try to do a few more units, and that'll really push us over the edge. And I think it's really neat to be able to year over year keep that momentum going. That would keep us comfortable. It would allow us to sleep easy at night without, you know, maybe feeling like we made it
Yes.
eventually.
Yeah. What would you, is there a percentage you could put on how much BNI is generated to that bottom line for 2018?
I didn't run the exact numbers, but I think it's close to 60% of our business came from BNI.
And that's a beautiful thing.
Mhm.
Usually we tell
And that's
people,
between Jeff and I. So, like,
yeah,
Jeff's got a tremendous amount of business that he's not in BNI. We kinda share the
yeah,
seat. I go every week, etcetera. He's my go-to
yeah,
substitute if I can't make it. Um, but we kinda share the seat so that he brings his business into BNI as well.
good.
So when his clients need a plumber or an electrician or a home inspector or a mortgage lender, he's bringing that into the group as well. And so that was the point of not both having BNI groups and splitting that was
Mhm.
to bring it in. But he generates most of his own business outside of BNI because that comes to me for
Yeah.
the most part. And so, yeah, 60% is pretty close to what we did.
And that's one of the things we try to tell people that are looking to join a BNI chapter, that conservatively, if you're getting 20 to 25% of your bottom line from this one chapter, why would you not join this chapter? Why would you not activate this chapter? As I tell people all the time, if you have another client worth 25% of your bottom line, and that client said, "Hey, Amy, every Tuesday morning, we're meeting at Starbucks at 9 a.m. to talk about my business," you're there,
You're right.
unquestioned. You're
Mm,
right. Okay.
yeah.
So 60% of a realtor business, not asking numbers, but
Yeah.
most people can assume there's at least 5 figures, maybe 6, and you do start doing 60% of that, you can understand why BNI is such a good place to start a or
Absolutely.
grow a small business.
And I mean, it's not fair because real estate is what, such a large, an easy thing to refer. So if
Mhm.
you've got a more niche product, in my previous role, I sold something that cost a lot less. I made a lot less money off of it commission wise, but it was really niche and it was very technical and advanced. And not every business needed it and not every person could refer it. And I didn't start off at 60%, but I grew it to 40 to 60%
Oh,
year over
okay.
year of my business came from BNI. And because I talked about that extraction of referrals, I really worked on sitting down and making sure that BNI worked really hard for me. I hate cold calling.
Yes.
Whether it's walking into a business saying hi, which I will gladly do any day, that's fine. But man, if you need me to pick up the phone and start dialing for dollars,
Yeah.
that is not my jam. And so I'd rather sit down and buy you lunch and pick your brain for an hour and do that 6 hours a day until I have exhausted every human I've ever met. And then I'll start over and do it
There
again
you
because in between you will have met new people. And I grew a different business that is niche and harder to do in BNI year over year, but 40 to 60%. My sales manager at the time couldn't believe it. He thought I was wasting so much time on one-to-ones, and I
Mhm.
was the number one go out to lunch eater of the company. And, I did a lot of coffees, and I had all these appointments on my books that were these networking meetings, and he just couldn't understand it. But I was one of the number one or number two salespeople for the entire Eastern Seaboard month after month after month. And when we would track my business,
Mhm.
year over year, 40 to 60% came from BNI. I could trace it back, whether it was someone in BNI or
Yeah.
someone that you introduced me to, because that would
Yep.
still count. It's a different level, but it still counted. And so
It
I'd rather do
yeah.
that 1,000 times.
And the people, what I've learned, the people that are successful in BNI can track that,
Mhm.
which I don't know why you wouldn't in your business
Yeah.
anyways
Yeah.
to track where they came from, because when somebody calls you, one of your first questions is, "Oh, great. How'd you find us?"
Absolutely.
Just so you know where to spend your time.
Exactly.
So now that you know what you know, another year into BNI, what kind of different things or more proactive things will you do in BNI in 2019, enhancing something you've done before or something new that you've thought about?
Yeah. So real estate, it sounds so easy. You just ask for buyers and
Put up a
sellers,
sign,
right?
please. The house will sell.
Well, not just that, but I mean,
12 offers.
my commercial every week is bring me a buyer, bring me a seller, the end.
Yeah.
But I try to do 4 to 6 week vertical markets in which I try to put in people's brains different ideas of things to think of me for. And one thing you mentioned early on is, you know, your friend Bob is moving from Wisconsin to Raleigh. How is that a referral for me? But if you allow me to help Bob interview and pre-qualify real estate agents in Wisconsin, whether or not he moves to Raleigh, if he moves to California,
Okay.
I can pre-qualify his sales agent in Wisconsin and in California and charge that realtor a referral fee. Referrals are a huge part of real estate business, but again, I get to use my network to help people um, grow. And so I keep a tremendous amount of BNI real estate agents. We have our own Facebook group. We have our own podcasts and mailing lists, and we do different events with each other to stay top of mind with each other in different areas of the U.S. So I've referred people up in New Jersey and Northern California and Iowa and super random places you just never know, Oklahoma, through that referral network. So I'll do these 4 to 6 week target vertical markets where I remind people of the other things I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good. If you are looking to buy or sell a house, you know somebody needs to buy or sell a house, please give Amy a call, 919-816-2694. Another reason why you should go check out a BNI chapter, meet people like Amy, who can also help you buy a house, sell a house, but can probably connect you with somebody you need if you need to find somebody to help you with any kind of chore you have around your house or anything
Yeah.
like that. But Amy is a great example of the people in BNI. Not only are they good at what they do, but willing to help, but also involved in the community. We appreciate you listening in today. And next week, please join us, Matt Kyanis with ADT Security. We'll see you next week on Triangle BNI.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section at nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by Telestream's Wirecast software, StreamingGear.com, Carolina Apparel, and DeltaForce.net.